There's no agency out there that has that crazy unique sauce that's different from all the other agencies out there. In the end, what brands I feel are really looking for is obviously some experience and expertise in the category, proof that you're coming up with innovative work, but more importantly than anything, it's culture fit and dedicated service. Trying to change up the agency model a little bit. So we had to scramble, and within 3 days got our team to agree that, hey, we're going to create our own employee-owned agency. Empowerment has been the greatest benefit from a leadership style that I can think of if I had to put a word on it, is how can we continually empower our employees to grow the business together and make sure that they're rewarded for it. And you'd be amazed the talent and leaders that come out of just having that mentality and culture in place.
Attention marketers and entrepreneurs, this is Valuetizing, the place where we talk about scaling brands worth promoting. If you're a mission-driven entrepreneur obsessed with creating, scaling, and exiting multi-million-dollar brands, this is for you. My name is Santiago Phoenix, and I am a business growth consultant, online marketer, and investor. I have helped more than 100 7- and 8-figure founders increase profits, claim their time back, and transform the world. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to Valuetizing. My guest today is Hogan Shrum, an entrepreneur, brand and consumer engagement expert, CPG Marketing Executive, and founder of A Little Bird brand agency. Hogan has worked with numerous Fortune 500 brands such as PepsiCo, Danone, and Harman. His passion is getting to the core of what makes a brand memorable and driving growth for companies that positively impact the world. Hogan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. I was very curious to speak with you because, to be honest, I come from the world of marketing that is very focused on performance, on sales, numbers, funnels, and you come from a different world, which I think is so interesting. And of course, it has a ton of value. So I want to understand that world of consumer engagement and all these things. So at A Little Bird, you guys say, we help brands activate wonder throughout memorable branded moments.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Great question. So where we come in is taking a brand's oftentimes traditional marketing campaign, standard messaging, et cetera, and bring that to life in memorable ways in live activations and execution. So that could be anything from a completely branded event that's ownable by the specific brand with various experiential elements. Think about the most common example being like a museum of ice cream type of pop-up experience where you can go and experience multiple rooms of branded engagement and opportunities for consumers to interact and experience your brand in whatever manner that may be. So for example, we do a lot of work with CPG companies, so the museum of ice cream option would apply. And a lot of that on the CPG side is going to involve sampling opportunities, right? So how do we get people into this activation or event that's got a fun experience, games, interactive elements, but really the goal here is try the product, gather consumer feedback and as much data as possible that would allow us to continue that engagement after the event. We can talk more about that if that's of interest. But then on the flip side, we have another client, Harman, that falls outside of the CPG space. They're the audio brand. They own Harman Kardon, JBL, et cetera. So that museum of ice cream example, in their case, right, would not be sampling driven. It would be how can I experience audio in these different ways? So those are a couple examples of what that means. But the idea being, how do we create a sense of wonder and excitement and engagement around a brand, whether that's a product launch or just ongoing familiarity and driving sales at retail and or D2C online?
Well, that's interesting. What would be like one of the best campaigns that you have seen in this space?
That we've done or just in general?
It can be either one of those.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options. So, one of our most recent projects that we've had a lot of success with, we've been working with this brand called Yasso. They're an ice cream company. And we took the traditional idea of an ice cream truck that we're all familiar with from when we were kids and turned that into an adult experience aimed at, music festivals and different events where we had a tricked out ice cream truck And Yasso it's a very colorful brand. They really embrace that sort of cartoony, like friendly, family friendly vibe. So we created a pretty large footprint with these 4 different experiences that brought each of their specific products to life. So they had one of their most popular projects was a mint chip ice cream bar. And so we created this immersive, mint chip photographable, Instagrammable area within the footprint that had some really creative elements, ice cream stick benches, a little weird mint to be content capture. They have another product that uses their ice cream sandwiches, kind of like the circular ones. And so we had an ice cream sandwich seesaw. We had a birthday cake, like the kind that you would roll out and kind of explode out of. We had that type of photo experience for their birthday cake line of products. It was just really successful, not only just from the experience perspective, but then in terms of scale. So we were in 32 different markets over a 9-month period, handed out.
Oh, so it's something that you can replicate.
Yeah. And so over the course of that program, handed out over 1 million samples. And because it was a mobile tour, so a tour that we moved across multiple states to different events throughout that 9-month period, we also had the opportunity to do some surprise and delight type of activations where we would stop by, an elementary school on their field day and surprise them with an ice cream truck where everybody could come and get a free, ice cream bar or ice cream sandwich. We would go support different local charities and school community events and things like that. So it was a really cool integrated ongoing program that had all of these different touch points throughout. And was just, again, hugely successful. We even did some fun stunts on the beach where we had someone come out and do a huge sand sculpture of a assortment of Yasso products that was branded and sat on the beach in Miami for, a weekend. So there was really fun integrated things that added on to this moving tour that we had that made it really fun, unique, different, etc.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
you are the guys behind those type of campaigns.
Yep.
That's really like an explosion of creativity.
Yeah, it's what I love most, honestly, about what we do. And I think a lot of people in advertising or marketing could say this too, right? The fun is being able to consistently come up with new creative ways to advertise a product, and being able to do that in a live setting to essentially create little mini amusement parks for brands and come up with different fun ways to create engagement. Like, pretty amazing that we get paid to do that.
That's the dream job.
Yeah.
How flexible are brands with what you guys can do or cannot do? Because I'm thinking a brand like PepsiCo that has such a strong, brand guidelines and is so recognized. Are they pretty flexible with what you guys can do?
It's a great question, and it really depends. So typically, and this is not always true, but typically, like the bigger brands, call it the PepsiCos, the Danons, they definitely have more red tape. And there can certainly be opportunities where when we're pitching a brand on these ideas and experiences, we have always got one idea that really pushes the envelope, and we joke, kind of tests their legal department on what we can get away with. And a lot of times working with those bigger brands, a lot of ideas can get killed in the process. But, we're working with another brand now that's a very well-known, I'll just say cranberry juice brand that people can probably figure out on their own. Can't mention names right now, but, their whole ethos is they're a maverick organization. So they're really embracing fun, unique, outside the box, push the envelope type of ideas, because that's just sort of sewn into their company culture. So our ability to be disruptive is certainly influenced by the brand and what their culture is, right?
Yes. Interesting. And like how does this translate on the internet? Do you guys also do something on the internet? I'm thinking Squatty Potty, for example, things like that.
Yeah. So I'm very familiar with Squatty Potty. Not sure I'm familiar with the specific campaign you're talking about, but what I think you're getting at is we do drive amplification online. So another big consideration when we're developing these experiential programs I'll use the CPG space as an example, in that, yes, we want to create a memorable experience for consumers. Yes, we want to make sure we're getting as many consumers to try the product as possible. But where we really try to differentiate ourselves as an agency in delivering these services is what happens afterwards. What's the strategy for, wow, we had this awesome experience with a consumer. They loved the product. They left the footprint and they left this event. Now what? How do we figure out, are they going to go buy this product? How do we continue that communication with them post event? So I'll use that Yasso example as the most simple one, right? There was a lot of content capture opportunities in that particular experience. And we would then incentivize, follow us on social for a chance to win XYZ. We had an opportunity where we had some brand ambassadors that were in the footprint during sampling, asking the consumers what they thought about the product, and then offered them a discount if they'd be willing to give their email so that we could send them a specific offer, promising not to spam. But the idea being, okay, you came to the Yasso experience. Here's a photo of you on the We're Meant to Be bench. We know you love this product. You said you shop at Safeway. Here's a promo code for you to use, or a coupon for you to use at your local Safeway for an exclusive, 25% off Yasso products. That's the simplest example. We definitely try and get more creative with that, but you can kind of see the thread we're trying to develop there, right? Which is, we got you to this experience. You had a great time. We know a little bit about your product preferences and hopefully shopping habits, that we can send you follow-up messaging after the event that feels very personalized and custom to you, and continues that sort of brand engagement piece, to going back to your very original point in question, where a lot of agencies are performance-based. In the end, so are we.
Yeah.
It's just that,
and retargeting. You are retargeting people.
Yeah, and in the end, we're still going to be measured on sales lift in these markets where we're doing these activations. There is an ongoing challenge in the space with attribution, meaning we can't for sure know to the exact percentage or sales number what our program did, because it's not as simple as straight up programmatic digital where, how many clicks, how many leads, how many conversions, all of that is pretty clear cut. For us, it's a little trickier, right? But the more we can build in these different amplification points after the activation, the closer we can get to showing our clients, look, here's how many new people were added to your email list. Here's how many new followers you gained on social. Here's how many people click through to the coupon. So we can start to show these metrics that tie results to the actual sampling of product.
That's pretty cool. Because, what do you think of that traditional debate? I don't know if it's traditional, but yeah, that debate between direct response marketing and brand advertising.
I mean, there's a place for all of it, right? I don't think you can do just one thing and expect it to succeed. And I always say to our clients, we always say, when it comes to the experiential work that we're doing and the activations we're producing, how does this fit into your larger marketing mix? And what can we tap into to, going back to my earlier point, amplify this beyond the on-site experience itself? So there's still 100% a need for your standard programmatic digital, especially when you can ramp that up geographically around an area. So for example, with the Yasso tour that I keep using as an example, we'd be in a region or a market for a week or two. Mm-hmm. And the idea there is, if everything's working properly on the programmatic and digital side, for example, you're ramping up a little bit of spending in that area, geographically targeting where we're having presence, so that, again, going back to that rule of it takes 6-7 engagements for a consumer to have with a brand for them to convert. We're just one touch point, but the more we can integrate all of your other touch points around that experience, the more effective it's going to be overall. Same thing goes with paid social, right? So running some paid social campaigns at this event while we're there, so that as people are searching or on their phones at the event, they're seeing more about Yasso in this case. Influencers, really important. Can we invite local, even micro to medium level influencers, say with 5, 10, 25,000 followers, but they have a very local following? Let's invite them to the event and have them produce some content, so that's another amplification point within that specific region that ties around this event. So all of these more traditional avenues that aren't necessarily experiential still fit into the mix.
I like that. Yeah, I remember when Seth Godin he launched his book, The Purple Cow. I think it was a box of milk
Yeah.
with yeah, it was like a purple cow.
Mm-hmm.
And it works so well because he really leveraged word of mouth, which is exponential. It's not like advertising. You need to put $1 in and maybe you get $2 out. This really spread out. So it looks like that's more or less what you guys are doing. It's like it's hard to measure, but if you create a really memorable experience, it will spread out, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow. Where did you learn this approach? Like, or my question would be like, uh, small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think how could they benefit from this approach? That would be my question.
Like a small business.
Yes, small businesses.
So an example would be we do work with a lot of call them emerging or growth stage brands. I'll stay in the CPG space for continuity, but um, a lot of those brands don't have the money to do a project like a Yasso, right? Where you're going to 32 different cities and, it's over $1 million investment on a program like that. But we also work with a lot of these brands that are just starting up. And again, it's very regional focused and you don't have to spend a ton of money on call it big productions like that Yasso tour example, where we've got 4 different like rooms essentially that we've built. This can be more on a field level and new retailer support. So we also do a ton of work where it's just, hey, we're a new brand. We recently gained distribution in Whole Foods, but only in the Southern California region. And Whole Foods is essentially using that as a test to determine whether or not they want to roll out this product nationally in all of their chains. And so we all have brands come to us and say, we need some sort of experience in sampling to drive sales at these specific Whole Foods locations. So we'll scale down that type of engagement and campaign strategy to obviously regionally, focusing on smaller events and opportunities where we can plug into the community without having to spend a ton on sponsorship dollars and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Working in things like guerrilla strategies where we don't have to pay. We can just pop up for an hour or two in a high traffic area near a Whole Foods
That's so
and
much
sample.
fun.
Yeah. Workplace is another great opportunity for us to engage with consumers on a local level. So again, let's say, there's a Whole Foods in, downtown Glendale here in Southern California, where we know there are a lot of office parks, but it's also a lot of restaurants and other areas that people and like a Whole Foods market where they're going for lunch every day. So we would go and post up at some of these higher traffic workplace venues, if you will, and engage with consumers during their lunch hour and encourage them to go purchase something at Whole Foods. So getting very hyper local is also very effective and much more budget friendly for those brands that don't have $1 million or more to invest in this type of marketing.
Yeah. Wow. And where did you learn this approach?
Just years of experience in the end. I came up on the actual activation and production side of things before starting or having our own creative agency. So I was everything we just talked about, those smaller scale street team style programs is what I started with. And then over the course of my career, I had opportunities via other agencies to work on bigger and bigger campaigns, more and more integrated campaigns. And, every marketing program and campaign that you have has its failures and you learn from your failures, right? Wow, I imagine that Yasso program as example. All the creative is spot on. Everything is awesome. We're handing out 1 million+ samples, but there was nothing on the front or back end of that engagement to drive sales and conversions, and the numbers aren't what they could have been, right? That's a key learning to take away and say, how do we focus more on amplification and not just the fun of the experience itself, but the value that it offers to these brands and the consumers alike. So I've worked on a lot of campaigns that fell short on a lot of these different areas, and over the course of the years have learned to build in strategies to ensure that those aren't failures again.
Interesting. And what's kind of like the story of your first business? How did you get started in entrepreneurship?
It's a funny story, actually. So one, I came up on, my whole career has been on the growth, business development, sales side of things for agencies. So I think that entrepreneurial spirit has always been there. And all of the agencies that I've worked with throughout my career, I came in when they were very young agencies. And being the lead for anything business development and growth is a natural entrepreneurial spirit, right? Because I'm essentially charged with owning the growth and development of the business itself. And learning how to do that it's not a straight sales game, right? It's relationships, it's understanding the client's needs, it's understanding all those different boxes you need to check in terms of value from these campaigns, going back to the metrics, right? So having that exposure through various different agencies obviously gave me a pretty well-rounded view of what it takes to run a successful agency. And then the beginning of A Little Bird specifically is a very interesting story that I'll try and keep short. But we were founded in 2017 here in the US. But we were actually together as a group before that. We were actually a division, the experiential division of an agency called Brand Sense Partners here in Los Angeles. They'd been around for a long time as a licensing agency. They were owned and operated by the founder of NASCAR. And we said, hey, how is there not an experiential division of this company here in NASCAR? Makes total sense, right? They agreed. We were off and running, and within a couple of years, we'd won brands like PepsiCo, Danone, Harman. So things are going great. And then in mid 2017, the financials just weren't working out, and the licensing side of the agency had run up a little bit of debt on some failed opportunities that kind of masked the success that we were having on the experiential side of things. And that combined with just some downsizing and or liquidation of a few of the NASCAR sub businesses basically put us in a position where we were given about 3 days notice that they were closing the agency. And we were in the middle of all of these, big contracts with some of these brands that I mentioned. And, frankly, it just wasn't possible to close the doors and wipe your hands clean of it, at least from my perspective, considering I was on the sales side. And these were a lot of my relationships. And so this was the birth of something you and I have talked about offline, of this, trying to change up the agency model a little bit. So we had to scramble, and within 3 days got our team to agree that, hey, we're going to create our own employee-owned agency. Mm-hmm. We want to build a company and an agency that works a little bit different than all the others that I've worked with, which, the agency world, as I'm sure you know, it's very cutthroat, turn and burn, work until you're burnt out, and then bring someone else in to pick up the pieces. Bigger agencies, you're passing clients around a lot, so there's not really that personal touch. The employees don't necessarily have skin in the game. They're just going through the motions. Well, we wanted to create something different with A Little Bird, where we're intentionally boutique. We'll stay that way for as long as we can. We're selective with the clients that we work with, and everybody at our company has skin in the game. We all share in the profits and financials of the company. So it's in everyone's best interest to deliver successful campaigns, continue our growth, retain clients. It's very, very rare that even over the course of a multi-year engagement, we've been working with Harman for almost 8 years, and their account director hasn't changed.
That's
incredible. We've got really, really committed teams. Even when we went through COVID, we lost a few people that have then come back. So I have this sort of badge of honor that I feel like we have, and that it's very rare when people leave agencies that they are anxious to come back and work for them again. We've created a culture that people want to come back, and that's one of the best rewards. But just going back to the start of it, so you asked about how did I get started on my entrepreneurial journey. I always had the spirit, and then it was through a chaotic mess over the course of 3 days that I became an agency owner. Wow. And in some ways, the joke is we were gifted an agency by NASCAR because they just decided to close up this shop and move on to greener pastures. And we took the business with us, didn't lose a client, didn't lose a team member, and just kept going.
Interesting. So essentially, the employees have equity. Um, is it just the founding employees, or is the new people and is during the duration of the contract, or how does it work?
Yeah, it's so definitely obviously the original employees, but everybody that comes in after a year is eligible for an initial level of equity in the company
Yeah.
that entitles them to profit shares. And obviously, in the future, if we were to ever sell or be acquired, they would have an opportunity to be a part of that cash out, if you will. But really, it incentivizes our team, like I said, to not just be profitable as a business, obviously having ALB's best interests in mind, but also our clients. Because if we're not delivering great service, if we're not delivering on our results and the creative or any aspect of these programs isn't there, there's a lot of agencies in this space. Clients will move on. They'll find another partner that they feel better suits their needs. And that is just something that we can't let happen. As a small agency, all of our clients matter. And if we lose a client, which is very rare, um, that has a profound impact on the business. And so everybody's invested in making sure we're delivering the best work for our clients. And that's why it's so important to keep that consistency in the team.
I love that. And I guess the whole families get kind of involved with like we are owners in this agency.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a different sense of commitment and work. And I think it's created I know it's created an entrepreneurial spirit in everyone in the company, because even our most junior level account coordinator folks on our team, pretty quickly they get into that ownership mindset of, yes, we got to be delivering on service, but how can we continue to deliver value to this client that I'm working with? They're constantly seeking out new opportunities and ideas for our clients. A couple of them get actively involved in the new world of new business. Like, they love what we're doing and they want to go out there and pitch it too. So a lot of our team ends up wearing voluntarily a lot of different hats. And as a leader of the company, it's proven to be amazing in terms of a lot of new talent comes in the door to an agency as a coordinator, right? Just account service and doing things. But we pretty quickly are able to identify different unique strengths that some of these employees didn't even know they had until they started with us, because they proactively get involved in other aspects of the business, like sales, outreach, internal marketing, content that we produce, case studies that we develop. And we've had some coordinators turn into business development reps and move into that side of things. We've had another that became our social media and content manager pre-COVID, when we could still afford that position. But it's become this really unique development path for our employees that I think was something I hadn't necessarily thought about when thinking about having this employee-owned agency. Yeah. That there's just a lot more proactivity on the team side in terms of exploring their unique abilities, sometimes of which they didn't even know that they had.
I really like that. Yeah, because in most agencies, it's just most people are just working there to punch the clock. Is that expression? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just want to do clean up their Asana board and leave.
Exactly right. And we're also one of those agencies that rarely, if ever, bases, our fees and how we structure our programs and budgets on hours. We've never, and, there are probably agency owners out there that if they hear this, they're gonna be like, what are you doing? But we've definitely had a lot of scenarios where we've certainly gone over on the hours we projected we would have to put into a client's work, but we're not going back to the client and saying, hey, you're going over our hours. We're a service-oriented company, and whatever it takes to get it done, we do. And I'll tell all of our clients this. Sometimes they'll ask when we're building the budget, can you send us an hours breakdown? I'm like, sure, here it is. But just so you know, if we go over, we're not going to bill you for it unless you dramatically change the scope of work. But, if this scope stays the same and it ends up taking us more time, or you need to consult with us on things a little more often than you anticipated, I'm not going back and saying you need to pay me an additional 2 hours for that phone call we had last week. It's not how we function, not how we work.
Are you looking for ways to grow your business faster? I have created a free masterclass that explains the 5 levels of exit every entrepreneur must go through, and by the way, selling your company is only one of them, the 8 biggest reasons why businesses get stuck and fail and how to avoid them, and a proven framework to turn your business into an asset so you can achieve faster profits and limitless impact with less stress and overwhelm in the process. If you would like to turn your small or medium-sized business into a valuable, sellable enterprise, this class is definitely for you. Just go to myplantoscale.com to get access now. Now, back to the show. So it seems like you are you're very big on engagement, employee engagement, yes, consumer engagement, client engagement, like.
Yep, we gotta walk the walk ourselves as a company, right? And yes, is the short answer.
Why do you think that is so important? Because I also read through your testimonials. You have pretty amazing testimonials, very genuine. And I like that they not only focus on your skills, but a lot on your character.
Yeah. So sorry, the question is again, what exactly?
Like this level of commitment to the client, to the service. I don't know. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, I think one of it, again, it's just something that, my natural approach prior to being a business owner when it came to sales and business development was being very relationship focused and very focused on listening and understanding the needs of my clients. I cringe at even the term salesperson, like carries with it a lot of stigma, right? And, for example, we're not a cold calling agency. Any salespeople that we have, it's not a numbers game. It's, we are very selective with who we reach out to. And when we reach out, we've done a lot of due diligence on, what news is there about the brand? Where are they in their growth stages? What retailers are they focused on? The list goes on of things that you can gather in terms of trying to identify where the gaps or pain points for a brand may be, so that when we do reach out to brands that we are interested in working with, it's not a stock email. It's not a cold outreach. We clearly know what we're talking about, have spent a good amount of time immersing ourselves in the brand and where they're at, what they're doing creatively, and trying to identify areas where we feel we can add value. And that's the first time you hear from us, is when we've got something very specific to pitch to you that we feel would bring value. And then using that as an opportunity to introduce ourselves. And again, we're not a pushy agency. We're selective with who we work with. And so for us, if it's not the right time, great. We'll talk to you again in the future. But having that needs focus and really listening and understanding what the client's needs are, and not constantly projecting why you're awesome as an agency, which I think is a big sort of flaw in agency outreach in general, is there's no agency out there that has that crazy unique sauce that's different from all the other agencies out there. In the end, what brands I feel are really looking for is obviously some experience and expertise in the category, proof that you're coming up with innovative work, but more importantly than anything, it's culture fit and dedicated service. The biggest pain points I hear from brands out there, I think I alluded to earlier, not having consistent people that they're working with at the agencies that they partner with, getting handed off all the time and not feeling that the employees or the team that they're working with at the agency has a unique understanding of their business needs, of their business challenges, key learnings from past work, all of those things are super important. And there are very few agencies that can legitimately guarantee that you're going to be working with the same team year over year. And having that kind of focus on service and client relationships and building up that unique knowledge where we truly can say we are an extension of your team.
Yeah.
Most of our clients, especially those like Harman, et cetera, would say that we're basically their marketing team. And we're and by having that relationship and building that relationship over time, we're not order takers anymore. We're collaborative partners. And if we can the faster we can build to having that relationship as a collaborative partner and an extension of the brand's team, that's where we have success, and why our clients keep coming back.
That's interesting. Very interesting. I've been I've been working in many agencies, and this is the first time that I hear about this, but it makes total sense.
I think so, and so far it's been really successful for us. I like I said, I think we've lost a couple clients over the years. I would say that more often than not, it's us breaking up with them and not the other way around. I genuinely can't think of an example where we were fired by a client for performance or service issues. We've obviously lost business when budgets change. Frankly, sometimes we've lost some business or a client hasn't come back because we've had a whole marketing team leave. Like, for example, we were working with White Wave Foods before they were acquired by Danone. And White Wave Foods, for those that don't know, it's like, Silk, Horizon, So Delicious Dairy Free, a bunch of products in the CPG space. And when they were acquired by Danone, it was a very big change culturally for the team over there. And I'd say the majority of our contacts within a year had left to go to different brands that were earlier in their stages. So we've seen a lot less work from Danone simply because all of our clients left, but then they take us with them. So that's how we got the Yasso business, for example. They are former White Wave folks. So that's one of the other things that we can be really proud of as an agency, is that when people and our clients leave the brand that we may have started working with them, they take us with them everywhere they go.
Yeah, that just shows that
that's where a lot of those testimonials that you saw come from. Those are all clients that worked with us at one brand and have since moved on to others and taken us with them, and they're writing about why.
Was leadership something that came naturally for you? Because I've seen many creative people who they're very introverted, and leadership is hard for them. But in your case, I think that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think it comes naturally. I certainly identify, even to this day, like certain areas that I wish I was stronger at from a leadership perspective. Certain things about the way I lead our team and the way we've built our agency from a leadership perspective, there could be holes poked in that for sure, right? But I'm confident in overall what we've created and the structure and culture that we have at A Little Bird, with the equity system, with our selectivity in terms of who we work with, is empowerment has been the greatest benefit from a leadership style that I can think of if I had to put a word on it. By empowering those that work on the team, even at the most junior level, and giving them essentially opportunities to fail and be okay with it, and show and encourage that as a learning opportunity, is what's made us so successful with all of our clients. Because, like I said, none of our employees, even at the earliest stage of their careers, are order takers. They're not just doing what you ask them to do. They're all very proactive in delivering value to our clients. So if we're ever failing, it's because we're not being as proactive as we should be in terms of continually identifying ways to deliver value. And so far, because of the culture we built, we very rarely, if ever, have that problem. So it was kind of a tangent there, but I think it answered your question in terms of leadership. Over time, that's what I've fallen back on most and been most consistent with, is how can we continually empower our employees to grow the business together and make sure that they're rewarded for it. And you'd be amazed the talent and leaders that come out of just having that mentality and culture in place.
Yeah, but so many business owners, I don't know, unconsciously they feel they must do all the work by themselves. They must create all the ideas and come up with all the strategies.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, and that's personally, those experiences that I've had with owners like that are why a Little Bird's culture is the way that it is. Because
Yeah.
I worked for several agencies, and the trajectory was always the same. It was, we're a small agency, we're kind of all hands on deck, going, and growing, and then success comes, and ownership doesn't have that empowerment culture, and it does end up becoming all about them. There's lack of transparency on how the company is doing, and in this day and age, and with the young, call it millennial, Gen Z employees, like they care about bigger picture. They want to know how the company that they're working with is doing, not just financially, but what's the purpose? What do we stand for? How do we do more than just the day-to-day work? All of these things are important. And I feel like in my experience, at least in the agencies that I've worked with over the years, that was the one missing piece. And it for lack of a better word, it turns into a sweatshop mentality, where it's like people they're bringing in as many clients as possible to earn as much revenue as possible and then make as much margin as possible. So how can I squeeze the most work out of someone while paying them the least amount of money to do it, until they can't take it anymore, and then they leave? And that creates the domino effect of, well, now you have high turnover at your agency, which leads to all of your clients not having a great experience and eventually moving on, oftentimes very quickly when they get passed around or they don't have consistency, and the growth stalls. And there have been several companies that I've worked with where we built something huge and only to have ownership wreck it. Because they didn't adapt to the volume and scale. They didn't have the culture to support that kind of work. And it's short-lived success that ends up leading to nothing when all said and done.
Yeah. Interesting. So I think that many times happens because business owners, maybe they compare to other business owners, so they start feeling FOMO and I need to grow this and that. Yeah, they start doing those type of strategies of just focusing a little too much on the financial side of things.
Yeah, and I'm not naive to the point where I would say I don't care about financials. 100% I care about financials. But I think what we've proven is there are ways to run an agency and build a culture where that isn't the only consideration. And frankly, we do quite well because we don't have the turnover. Because they feel empowered and they're willing to go that extra mile on their own without being driven into the ground, and knowing that all the extra work and things that they're doing has a bigger meaning. They're part of the agency. They'll share in the profits. They'll share in the success. Almost all other agencies just don't have that culture. There are some out there that do, but not many.
Yeah, you're right. There's definitely a need for a new agency model.
Yeah.
Does the name mean something? A Little Bird?
Yes. So we almost don't like to say, but it's pretty simple, right? We want to build engagements that, you mentioned it earlier, that are meaningful and engaging enough to create that natural word of mouth. Okay. And so building off of, sometimes you don't know who told you, but you heard, oh, Little Bird told me, like you have the inside knowledge. You heard from somebody else that this is awesome. That's the type of groundswell we want to create around brands, is create something memorable that's shared and passed along and amplified beyond that one experience.
And for anyone trying to kind of think, how can we increase referrals? Because it's a topic that I've seen and people try to reverse engineer the process. I think it comes down to what you're talking about, which is just try to create something outstanding and deliver an outstanding service, and people will naturally talk about it.
Exactly.
Amazing. This was super interesting. Where can people learn more about you, Hogan?
You can definitely check us out on our website. It's www.little-bird.com. And then, I'm always open via email as well. So Hogan@littlebird.com. Feel free to reach out for anything, learn more. Happy to consult on anything. Trying to think where else. I think those are the best spots. We've got a lot of content out there that you can learn more about our work and what we do.
Thank you. What's like what are the plans for the future for you, for the agency?
So, I mean, in all honesty, right now we're still in rebuilding mode post-COVID. So, COVID for experiential was terrible to say the least.
Yes.
And so in many ways, just like when we became a little bird and we had to reset, COVID was a reset for us. Thankfully, our strategy and creative work is one of several things that carried us through the pandemic. But so the future right now is, rebuilding is, we've got like several of these clients that I've mentioned that are still on board with us. But then continuing to focus on growth specifically within that CPG vertical where we've established a lot of expertise. So we're in active growth mode right now. Bigger picture, the main idea has always been like, how can we continue to build and scale this methodically and almost kind of not intentionally slow, but avoiding anything too rapid where we bite off more than we can chew. But in the end, within 3 to 4 years, we'd love to be in a place where we've shown that, hey, look, now we may have 25 to 40 employees, but we're still able to replicate this success, the service, et cetera, and hopefully inspire other agencies to mimic that culture and show that it can work. My ideal goal would be to have an impact on the industry where this becomes more of the standard model for agencies versus burnout.
Yes. And disappointed clients.
Exactly. All better work and happier clients are out there if you take this approach, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to see your growth, and there's definitely a need for a voice like yours in the industry.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time and thoughtful questions, and it's fun talking about. Sometimes you get involved in the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture stuff. So this has been fun.
If you enjoyed the show, hit the share button and send it over to one fellow marketer or entrepreneur. We work hard to make sure they'll thank you for it. Also, to get featured on the show, go to valuetizing.com and apply to become our next guest. Until next time, keep valuetizing.